David Hartley had hit rock bottom. At 34, his marriage to Victoria had crumbled spectacularly. Caught red-handed with his yoga instructor, he'd lost not just his wife but his dignity, his apartment lease, and most of his savings in the divorce settlement. His corporate job at the marketing firm felt like a prison, where colleagues whispered and pitted him in equal measure. When he saw the listing for Blackwood Estate, a decrepit Victorian mansion on the outskirts of Millbrook, he knew it was his chance at redemption. Listed at $14,500 with as-is conditions, it was a steal. The realtor, an elderly woman named Mrs. Chun, had hesitated before handing him the keys. "There's something you should know about the basement," she'd said cryptically, pointing to a clause in the contract written in faded ink. The previous owners, going back decades, all agreed never to disturb the basement level. It's sealed for a reason. David had laughed it off. A superstition, probably. He signed the papers that evening. The house was beautiful despite its decay. Hardwood floors beneath layers of dust, a grand staircase with ornate railings, and rooms that whispered stories of better era. David spent his first weeks gutting the rotted sections, replacing windows and power washing the exterior. He threw himself into the work, using his hands to heal his fractured psyche. Victoria had moved on quickly. She was already engaged to her personal trainer, a fact that stung more than David cared to admit. Late at night, alone in the empty mansion, he'd pour whiskey and wonder where he'd gone wrong. The yoga instructor had been meaningless. Victoria simply hadn't been enough anymore. He'd been hollow for years, seeking validation in someone else's eyes instead of his own. It was during the third week, while reinforcing the floorboards in the master bedroom, that David heard it. A sound, soft, deliberate, something moving beneath the floor. At first, he dismissed it as rats or pipes settling. But the sound was too rhythmic, too purposeful. He pressed his ear against a newly exposed wooden beam and heard it again, a soft scratching, followed by what sounded almost like a whimper. The basement, the sealed basement that must not be disturbed. David descended to the ground floor, flashlight in hand, and stared at the basement door. It was reinforced with a heavy padlock, and the hinges had been welded shut. Whoever had sealed this space had done so with absolute finality. He tried the lock. Ancient, corroded. One blow from his crowbar shattered it. The basement door creaked open, releasing decades of stale, cold air. A metallic smell, something chemical and unfamiliar, drifted upward. David's heart hammered as he descended the concrete stairs into darkness, his flashlight cutting through the shadows. What he discovered down there would unravel everything he thought he knew about his world, and about himself. The basement extended far deeper than the house's foundation should have allowed. David's footsteps echoed against stone walls that predated the Victorian structure above by decades, perhaps centuries. The air grew colder with each step downward, and the metallic smell intensified. His flashlight beam caught something. Machinery. Alien machinery. Crystalline structures lined the walls, pulsing with faint bioluminescent glow. Some sort of technology he couldn't comprehend. Organic and mechanical at once, humming with an energy that made his teeth ache. There were pods, chambers, and at the center of it all, a massive underground cavern that opened into a kind of sanctuary. That's where he found her. She was huddled in the corner, partially concealed by shadows, her body trembling. At first, David thought she was human, a woman, slender and small, with long reddish-brown hair. But as his eyes adjusted, he saw the differences. Her ears were pointed, tufted at the tips. Her eyes were large and luminous, amber with vertical pupils. Her skin had a faint iridescence, and her nails were more like delicate claws. She recoiled at his light, hissing softly, her hand raised in what might have been a defensive gesture or a plea. "Don't," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Please don't scream." David froze. His rational mind warred with his instincts. Every human instinct screamed at him to run, to call someone, to do something. But there was something in her voice, desperation mixed with resignation, as if she'd already accepted whatever came next. "I won't," he found himself saying. "What are you?" "Afraid," she replied simply. "My name is Cale. I am not from your world." Over the next hour, Cale told him her story. She was part of an exploratory mission from the Kethrin Dominion, a spacefaring civilization light years away. 7 years ago, her vessel had experienced catastrophic failures and crash-landed on Earth. The rest of her crew had died in the impact, and she had been stranded ever since. I hid, Kale explained, her voice barely audible. Your species. You fear what you don't understand. I've observed humans long enough to know that if you discover me, I would be captured, experimented on, killed. She paused. The previous owners of this house, they found me within days of the crash. Instead of calling your authorities, they sealed the basement and left. They built a sanctuary for me. They left me supplies, medications, technology. For generations, their descendants maintained the secret. Until they sold the house, David said quietly. Until they sold the house, Kale confirmed. The family line ended. The last owner had no children to pass the secret to. She made the clause mandatory, hoping whoever purchased the property would honor it. David looked at her properly now. She was visibly injured. Her left side was wrapped in what looked like bioluminescent bandaging, and her breathing was labored. There was a long gash along her ribs, barely healed. You're hurt. The crash was years ago, but the injuries, they are severe. My physiology is different from yours. My medications are running out. Without proper treatment, I will... She trailed off, but the meaning was clear. Something shifted inside David. This creature, this alien woman, had been living in complete isolation for 7 years, hiding from a world that would destroy her out of fear. She had harmed no one. She had simply survived. Victoria would have called authorities immediately. Victoria would have done the rational, sensible thing. David was tired of being rational. Can you stand? He asked. Hope flickered in those amber eyes. David converted one of the upstairs bedrooms into a sanctuary for Kale. He reinforced the basement door with new locks and brought her medications, food, and blankets. The first night she stayed in the house proper was transformative. She wept silently as she felt real sunlight through the window for the first time in 7 years. It feels like hope, she whispered. Over the following weeks, David learned to care for injuries. He researched her physiology using the encrypted data files she accessed through her remaining technology. Kale was a biologist herself, and together they developed a hybrid treatment plan using Earth medications combined with her species' techniques. Slowly, she healed. And slowly, something else happened. The loneliness that defined both their lives began to crack open. David, who had spent months punishing himself for his infidelity, found in Kale a non-judgmental companion. She had watched humanity from a distance for years. She understood human weakness in ways terrestrial beings never could. Your species is not evil, she told him one evening as they sat together in the darkened bedroom. You are young, chaotic. You destroy and create with the same hands. But you also choose compassion, even when it costs you. That is rare in the universe. I wasn't compassionate before, David admitted. I was selfish. Hollow, you are being compassionate now. That is what matters. The intimacy between them developed gradually. It wasn't planned or sudden. It was born from late-night conversations, from David reading aloud to her, from the night she cried about her crew and he held her while she grieved. When it finally happened, when he kissed her under the soft glow of her bioluminescent devices, it felt inevitable. She tasted like something indefinably alien and utterly perfect. Her body was similar enough to human form that they fit together like puzzle pieces, but different enough that every touch was an exploration. She was curious, tentative, and achingly responsive. When he was inside her, she made soft sounds that weren't quite words, her luminescent skin brightening with pleasure. I thought I would never feel this, she whispered against his chest afterward, her pointed ears pressed against his heartbeat. Connection, being wanted. I've never felt anything like this, David replied, meaning it completely, not with Victoria, not with anyone. But as their relationship deepened, reality crashed in. Victoria called one morning. She was pregnant with her fiancé's child. The news hit David harder than he expected. She'd found her happiness, her new beginning. Everyone moved on except him. Everyone except Kale. That evening, as they lay entangled in his bed, Kale said something that changed everything. "My government knows I survived the crash," she whispered. "They've been searching for 7 years. My people, we are not peaceful, David. We are fearsome. If they find me here, if they know humans harbor me, they will see it as a threat or an opportunity to conquer. What are you saying?" "I'm saying that keeping me here is becoming increasingly dangerous, not just to you, but to your entire world." She propped herself up on her elbows, her amber eyes serious. "I need to make contact with my people before they find me first. But I need to do it on my terms. I need you to help me." David pulled her back down to him. "Whatever you need." But he didn't realize yet how much his world was about to change. Kale had been in communication with her people for weeks, using an old transmitter hidden in the basement, broadcasting on encrypted channels David couldn't begin to understand. She had told him, but he'd chosen not to ask too many questions. What mattered was that she was trying to ensure her rescue without bringing catastrophe to Earth. Then one night, soldiers arrived. Not Earth soldiers. Something else entirely. David was in the kitchen when he heard the sound, a low humming that made every cell in his body vibrate. Through the window, he saw them. Sleek craft descending from the clouds, their surfaces reflecting light in ways that hurt to look at directly. Figures emerged, tall, impossibly elegant beings with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that glowed with intelligence and cold purpose. His heart nearly stopped. Kale rushed downstairs, already dressed, a small bag in her hands. "They're here. My people. David, you have to hide." "Hide? They're alien soldiers. They'll search the—" "No." She grabbed his face in her small hands, forcing him to focus on her eyes. "Listen to me. My commander, Theron, he's different. I have been in communication with him. He knows you found me. He knows what you did. And he's willing to consider something unprecedented." "What?" "An alliance." The front door exploded inward. The beings, Kethrins, Kale called them, flowed into the house like liquid shadow. They were armed with weapons that looked like concentrated light and geometric angles. For a moment, David thought this was the end. Then Kale stepped forward, her hands raised, and began speaking in a language that sounded like crystalline chimes and low frequencies that resonated in David's chest. The commander, Theron, was magnificent and terrible. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, his movements fluid and predatory. When he looked at David, David felt the weight of a truly alien intelligence assessing him. It was like being examined under a microscope by God. "You are the human who harbored our daughter," Theron said, his voice heavy with accent but perfectly comprehensible. Yes. I helped her when she was—" "You could have exposed her. You could have destroyed her. Instead, you chose protection." Theron stepped closer. "Your species is not known for such choices toward the unknown. This is intriguing." What followed was a bizarre negotiation. Kale explained that she had fallen in love with David. She explained that she didn't want to leave without bringing him into the truth. And most shockingly, she proposed something that made the other Kethrins murmur among themselves. "I want to stay," Kale said, "for a time. Long enough to truly understand if humans and Kethrins can coexist peacefully. If we can build something together, not as conqueror and conquered, but as equals." "This is highly irregular," Theron said. "Father, I have spent 7 years observing humanity. I have also spent the last months experiencing it, truly experiencing it, through David. Your prejudices about the species are rooted in fear, not fact. I asked for the chance to prove that we are wrong about them." Theron was silent for a long moment. "Then you will stay, but under observation, and you will serve as liaison between our peoples. If humans prove as dangerous as we suspect, the alliance ends." He looked directly at David. "Human, your kind will know of us now. A delegation will remain. Prepare your world for the truth." The news broke 6 months later, when governments could no longer contain it. A Kethrin delegation had established an embassy in Geneva. The aliens were real, and they wanted to trade technology for resources, knowledge for mutual protection. The world erupted into controlled chaos. David's abandoned house became something else entirely, a hybrid sanctuary where human and Ketran scientists worked together. Kale served as cultural liaison, helping both species understand one another. She was simultaneously a bridge and a symbol, proof that coexistence was possible. But for David, the most profound change was personal. He had come to the house broken, divorced, ashamed. He had hidden from his life in renovation work and whiskey. Finding Kale had given him purpose. Helping her had reminded him that he was capable of genuine compassion. And loving her had transformed him into someone he actually respected. Kale had also changed. The fear that had defined her captivity had evolved into something more nuanced, an understanding that her survival meant nothing if she couldn't truly live. She no longer hid. She walked through town with David, her pointed ears visible, her luminescent skin uncovered. People stared. Some were afraid, but increasingly they were curious. One evening, as they stood on the house's newly renovated balcony overlooking the property, Kale took David's hand. "I received a message from my people today," she said. "They want me to lead the integration efforts. It would mean traveling, speaking, building protocols for coexistence across multiple continents." She paused. "I told them I needed to ask someone first." "You're asking me?" "I'm asking if you would come with me. I'm asking if you're ready to leave this house, this symbol of your broken life, and build something entirely new with me, something that has never existed before." David thought of Victoria, who had moved on to her perfect, uncomplicated human life. He thought of the man he had been, the hollow man who cheated because he couldn't bear being truly seen. "Yes," he said, "but I want to do one thing first." He proposed to her properly, not with a ring, because humans and Kethrans experience symbols differently, but with words spoken under the stars as Ketran vessels passed overhead like omens. She said yes by intertwining her fingers with his and pressing her luminescent skin against his until they shone together. The media called it the first documented romance between species. Theologians debated its implications. Scientists studied it endlessly. But for David and Kale, it was simply love. Unexpected, impossible, and absolutely real. As they left the abandoned house for the last time, it would become a museum, the birthplace of human-Ketran relations. David reflected on the choices that had led here. His infidelity had destroyed his marriage. His desperation had led him to a sealed house. His curiosity had broken ancient rules. His compassion had changed the world. In the end, the universe didn't reward the strong or the certain. It rewarded the lonely, who found the courage to see differently. And in a house that had been abandoned, two beings from different worlds had found something worth building toward, a future where the impossible became inevitable, where hidden things emerged into light, and where breaking the rules was the only way to save them.